This week we have an article that is from HRCA magazine. It's actually Human Resources Director. The topic is, should HR monitor employees' social media accounts? And the author is John Corrigan. So I will go ahead and say, first of all, that it is a good idea to know where your employees are working, to know that they're logged in and that they can access the tools that they need. In a previous episode, we talked about how like 40% of HR had no idea where their employees were working these days. So I do think you should be able to know kind of where your team is and if they need any resources from you. But I don't think that this is the same question. Question is about, should you be snooping on social media accounts? I'm kind of conflicted because I've seen in investigations where monitoring social media accounts has been helpful to reach a decision. But I also believe that employees should be able to conduct themselves online um, and have some agency over how they conduct themselves online. So, what I would say, I'll start there, and then I'll let you give your thoughts, and then I'll kind of put some boundaries and guardrails around my thoughts of when it's okay to monitor social media and when it shouldn't be. So, Summer, I don't want to hijack the conversation. What are your thoughts?
Well, there's so much to chat about here. And, first I'll start by saying that in regards to social media, there are so many different platforms. And from an employer standpoint, I always lean towards LinkedIn because, it's content that is intended to be viewed by potential employers. And so I tend to keep my monitoring, if you will, or my research, which is really, I think, a more appropriate term, to LinkedIn, because I feel like job seekers or current employees should know, and I think they do, that information that they share and the engagement they have on that platform is likely to be seen by their employer or a potential employer. But when it comes to all others, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, like the list goes on, I think that it starts to get into very scary territory. And like you said, I do believe that there may be, in some instances, a time and a place to go look. But I don't agree with making it a standard practice for every employee you hire, or maybe even like on a regular schedule going out and looking to see what your employees are posting. But I think that there are exceptions to this, and I have a feeling, Joey, that you wanted to talk about maybe some of the exceptions.
Yeah. So if you work in a leadership capacity in HR for any period of time these days, your investigations are going to somehow cross paths with somebody's social media. So one example I could give is obviously, stalking at work. And if folks are doing things that they shouldn't be online, and it's harassing other individuals at work. For the purpose of investigating that case, you do want to make sure that you're checking in and seeing if there's any harmful activity happening online. Another example that I had, maybe this is a consultant's corner all by itself, but there was an organization where the senior leader of that organization was watching porn and spending the company's money and leaving trails of it on chat boards like Reddit. So, for the purpose of the investigation, we had to do some digging and figure that stuff out. Another one would be, there's the NLRB, which gives people the right to complain about their job, right? And right to complain in open forums. And that's an instance where, as a HR consulting firm, we're actually there to protect the employees' rights, because if they're venting about their day in a way that is consistent with the rights afforded the NLRB, they should be able to. But I believe venting and talking with your employees in public settings, that could trigger some of the violations for the NLRB. And in that case, you want to make sure that you got a copy of or a pulse check on what's happening on socials. And so that could be Facebook, that could be chat boards, that could be Instagram, that could be Twitter. If someone is maybe a little more volatile, if they just like got some news that they're not aware of, I could go all day, right? There's plenty of stories around social media and how you use it, but I'm trying to give some practical guardrails around, like, to your point, Summer, when to go looking as opposed to just feeling like you have to be observing 24/7. I don't think you should be observing 24/7. But if there is an issue that warrants a look into someone's social media, I'd say look for that purpose. But other than that, let people be people.
I think that that's the best way to sum up the guidance that I do share, which is if you don't have a reason to be looking, don't go looking, because you may find something that you're now conflicted or you now know that may may weigh on you. And if things were okay before going out and finding that information, then they need to be okay after. I think the exception to this is that, of course, if you're tipped off or you have a reason to go looking and you find something that is a violation of company policy or is a statement that would put the company's business at risk, or the business would suffer damage from doing so. So, of course, if you find something like that, then you better hope that you have a policy in place to enforce whatever the next steps of appropriate action are. And so I think to your point, there's so many stories that we could share that are examples of this. One really quick one that I encountered was a employee who we had, when I worked at a different company, we had complaints about concerns of comments this individual had made or perceived threats of violence. And employees were a little bit concerned about their safety. So, of course, we interviewed a couple of other coworkers to try to assess the risk here. And when we went out to this individual's socials, which were completely public, we did find really disturbing remarks, a lot of photos that were of violent acts, weapons that this individual had. And it did elevate, kind of the concerns from an employer standpoint. So I think there are instances where it can be helpful. Like in that case, it helped us determine what next steps were. But you're going to see things that you likely shouldn't, and that brings me to my last point. I'm gonna ask it as a question. Joey, what's your rule for friending coworkers or individuals that are in close professional circles? Do you have kind of a standard rule that you follow?
I would say when I was in corporate, my rule was I wouldn't friend or follow colleagues. But now, as a entrepreneur, thought leader, whatever you want to call it, I'm more okay with following folks on the team and they following me. But I don't force that on anyone either. So if it's, for example, an Instagram or a Twitter where you kind of accept people in, I don't force that.
So I mentioned this because I think it is on topic and a great way to kind of wrap up this part of our show. My general recommendation is that if you are working, if you are a leader or part of the management team of a company, I definitely recommend that you think twice about friending your coworkers, just kind of for the same reasons that we said earlier. They may, or you may see things or learn things about these individuals that then make that work relationship a little bit challenging, but there is a solution. And the solution is if you insist on friending them, then make two profiles. One, which is, kind of your work / professional profile. You post certain things there, and then your personal. But of course, by doing so, you still run the risk of seeing things that these other individuals may be posting. But if you insist on interacting, then that's kind of the happy medium solution that I propose.
Yeah, I like that solution.